Now let's add a seam going around the case. So we don't necessarily want this to be able to open all the way up, but we definitely want to have some sort of a seam showing where the opening of this case would be. And it would be going around the center, going all the way around. And so let's go ahead and add that in. I'm going to hit 1 on the keyboard to just go back to our low poly. If you want to turn on wireframe shaded, that'll give you a little bit better idea of where the lines are. So I want to add an edge right along the center of this section here. So let's go into our Insert Edge Loop tool, and I'll reset it. And I want to set this to multiple edges. And let's set that down to 1. There we go. And then I'll drop it right in the middle, right there. All right. Now I want to drop in a couple of edges on either side of this. So one way we can do this very quickly is just to go into our Offset Edge Loop tool. And then if we click on this particular edge, that'll allow us to add edges right on either side. And so we'll come in maybe kind of right here. And with that edge still selected, we'll go ahead and bevel it. Okay, so now we've got 4 edges there. Now I want to change the offset of the bevel, so I'll choose the Poly Bevel node. We'll go to Offset, and I'm just going to bring this down a little bit, maybe to 0.1 or so. So we've got 2 edges in the middle here, and then 2 edges on the outside. So I'll select these faces. So I'll click on one, Shift, double click on the next one. I'll do the same thing here. So we've got all those selected all the way around. Let's now do an extrude. And we're just going to take the thickness out just a little bit. So something like that. Now if we go ahead and look at this, and we'll turn off our wireframe, we can see that we've now created this sort of ridge coming around. Now if we want to kind of tighten this up, remember all we're going to do is add edge loops. And so we can go ahead and use our Insert Edge Loop tool, and depending on how you want to tighten this up, you can come in under here and tighten it up. Same thing up here, and then you can kind of look at it, kind of see how that looks. And actually I want it to be a little bit softer going in there, so I think instead I'm going to just kind of sharpen up these outer edges. So maybe kind of come in here where these meet. Maybe that's a little bit of a harder edge. You kind of move it down a little bit. So you still get that sort of molded, soft look, but then you have the kind of the hard edge of the seam coming in. And if you wanted to make that a little bit thicker, all you'd have to do is when you create your edges, just make sure they're a little bit further apart. I'm going to take this and let me just scale it or move it down a little to kind of match up with the other one. So something like that. All right, and you can see how that goes across the entire surface, and it goes across our where our latches will be and everything. So all the way around to the back. Okay, and we've got a little bit of a groove here. You can see we haven't made it completely tight up against the other pieces. A lot of times in the real world, things that are closed tight, things like car doors and cases like this, they're actually going to have maybe a little bit of a gap there, a visible gap, depending on what it is. It's not going to be perfectly lined up and straight. You want to be able to see that there's a little bit of an opening there. All right, so once we've got our seam set, the next thing that we can do is to go ahead and add a few insets up here on the top. So we want to create kind of an emblem to go up here for the case, and maybe a little bit more kind of raised detail up at the top, and then we'll continue on by modeling some raised ridges along the back. So let's go ahead and start with that in the next lesson.